In the previous lecture, we discussed classical conditioning, which involves responses being due to involuntary actions from a stimulus. With instrumental conditioning, or as I prefer, operant conditioning, learning occurs when we change our behaviors due to either positive or negative stimulus. In other words, we're able to see the rewards and consequences of our behavior. For example, you stick a metal object in a wall socket, and due to the shock you received, you learn not to do that again. The seminal work in the area of operant conditioning comes to us first from Edward Thorndike, but more importantly from B.F. Skinner. Skinner felt that operant conditioning better explained human behavior than did classical conditioning because he realized, or he believed, that humans were able to rationalize the cause and effect actions of their intentional behaviors. Many video games use operant conditioning through the use of positive reinforcement. Think of a game such as Candy Crush Saga or Pokemon Go. Every time players hit the next level in the game, it gives them some type of reward. You either get a new box or you get to open up all these treats or whatever it is. And because of that, it causes them to keep playing to experience the joy they gain from unlocking a new level. So with operant conditioning, learning occurs through either reward or punishment for one's behavior. If you think back to your childhood and the interactions you had with your mom or dad, or even your grandparents. For example, with me, although both lived in Mississippi, I had two very different sets of grandparents. One lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and the other lived on the coast. Visiting one meant working on the farm with no entertainment after dark, while the other meant taking the yacht to dinner at the yacht club, along with plenty of fun and excitement. But even with all the fun I had at each of my grandparents, both of my grandmothers were about the same, very strict. And I would have probably preferred to stay at home during the summer due to baseball or my friends, but because of both of my grandfathers, I really enjoyed the visits and I look forward to them. They were both fun to be around, albeit in different ways. One would ask me to help him on the farm and then reward me with hunting or fishing or driving his truck or tractor, even at a very young age of about 10. The other taught me how to captain his yacht and told me amazing stories about his time in the Air Force. He also taught me never to gamble with him in cards, as he knew how to stack the deck from his days in the Air Force as well. Now, of course, I couldn't just visit my grandfathers, but they sure made my visits more fun. It was somewhat the opposite with my parents. I learned at a very early age that if I had some problem, always talk to my mom and not my dad. Oftentimes, many of the lessons that we learned are through hard trial and error lessons. As stated previously, with operant conditioning, we learn over time due to either the rewards or punishments we receive. Rewards, or reinforcement behaviors, will increase a specific behavior, while punishment will decrease that behavior, or another behavior. Let's first look at the reinforcement side. A positive reinforcement, such as getting a free gift from a brand's reward program, will cause an individual to continue to use the rewards program, and if the potential reward is strong enough stimulus, it may cause the individual to increase use just to get the reward quicker. Think about a credit card that gives the users cash back on their purchases from a certain retailer. Not long ago, American Express presented me with an offer that if I would auto pay my cell phone bill with their credit card, they would give me a $10 credit each month for the next 6 months. So I did. The $10 credit ended months ago, but I still haven't changed it. So the reward that they gave me basically conditioned me to I just left it. It's just not worth the trouble, but the reward is still there, and if I see other rewards from them, I will probably move other bills that I pay on a regular basis to American Express as well. Negative reinforcement can also increase the occurrence of a particular behavior by removing a stimulus. Think about waking up each morning to that annoying sound of your alarm clock. To stop the negative stimulus, the alarm, you had to cut off the alarm. Of course, we are also learning to positive reinforcement by hitting the snooze button for a glorious 8 or 10 more minutes of sleep. A negative reinforcement can also be engaged by avoiding something negative. For example, have you ever had so much coursework due at the end of the semester, work that you kept putting off for weeks or even months, that you swore next semester you would not be a procrastinator? For those that learn not to put things off until the end, the negative reinforcement work. But for many of us, we don't learn that well. Punishment can also be a powerful means of learning, as the unpleasant event that follows our behavior typically will lead us not to repeat those behaviors. We have all, hopefully, learned the expensive lesson of not paying a bill on time after being hit with a late payment fee. Let's look at an example of both reinforcement and punishment from Sheldon of The Big Bang Theory.
Are you finished?
Well, thank you. How thoughtful. Would you like a chocolate?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Oh, sorry, Sheldon. I almost sat in your spot.
Did you? I didn't notice. Have a chocolate.
Thank you.
You're here a lot now.
Oh, am I talking too much? I'm sorry. Zip.
Thank you. Chocolate?
Yes, please. Oh, hey, Kim. Yeah, you know what? Hold on. Let me take this in the hall. You'll never guess who they got to replace you with.
Okay. I know what you're doing.
Really?
Yes. You're using chocolates as positive reinforcement for what you consider correct behavior.
Very good. Chocolate?
No, I don't want... Sheldon, you can't train my girlfriend like a lab rat.
Actually, it turns out I can.
Well, you shouldn't.
There's just no pleasing you, is there, Leonard? You weren't happy with my previous approach to dealing with her, so I decided to employ operant conditioning techniques, building on the works of Thorndike and B.F. Skinner. Yet by this time next week, I believe I can have her jumping out of a pool, balancing a beach ball on her nose.
No, this has to stop now.
I'm not suggesting we really make her jump out of a pool. I thought the bazinga was implied. I'm just tweaking her personality, just sanding off the rough edges, if you will.
No, you're not sanding Penny.
Are you saying that I am forbidden from applying a harmless, scientifically valid protocol that will make our lives better?
Yes, you're forbidden.
Bad, Leonard. You know, using positive reinforcement techniques, I could train that behavior out of her in a week.
No.
If you let me use negative reinforcement, I can get it done before we go to bed.
You're not squirting her in the face with water.
No, of course not. We're talking very mild electric shocks. No tissue damage whatsoever.
Forget it.
Oh, come on. You can't tell me that you're not intrigued about the possibility of building a better girlfriend.
I'm not. Penny's qualities, both good and bad, are what make her who she is.
You mean like that high-pitched, irritating laugh?
Yes.
You wouldn't prefer a throaty chuckle?
You're not changing how Penny laughs.
No, that would be incongruous. I was going to lower the whole voice to a more pleasing register.
Sorry, guys. That girl is freaky.
Come again?
Freaky.
Freaky?
Yeah, freaky.
Have a chocolate.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to make some warm milk and then turn in. I trust if you two are planning on engaging in amorous activities, you'll keep the decibel level to a minimum.
Of course.
Thank you.
These are so good.
Unbelievable.
What?
I was just thinking we should probably turn into...
Well, my new bed got delivered. If you come over and put it together, you can stay at my place.
Really? That's a lot of work, and it's kind of late.
Yeah, but if we stay there, we won't have to be quiet.
Let's go.
Interesting. Sex works even better than chocolate to modify behavior. I wonder if anyone else has stumbled onto that.
Cognitive learning, on the other hand, involves an internal mental process, and it kind of views people as problem solvers who are actively engaged in learning by using the information that they gather from their environment. Under this view, learning takes place as a result of conscious and deliberate information processing. Researchers argue that learning can best be explained by analyzing the mental processes that occur in learning, and that the most effective cognitive processes lead to easier learning, and that any new information gained can be stored in our brains much longer. Advertisers use cognitive learning theory in developing their ad messages, which we're going to see shortly. The process of cognitive learning begins as we perceive a stimulus, and based on our perceptions, intelligence, beliefs, biases, etc., we begin to assign meaning and develop corresponding responses to the stimulus. From here, the meaning is put into our memory for later use. For example, when you were in grade school, you learned the multiplication tables. This was basically creating one set of learning, which we call rote learning. However, the knowledge that we gained also gave us the ability to multiply even more complex numbers later. So what we know about cognitive learning is that researchers have told us that this type of learning involves a complex mental process of forming opinions, attitude, and decision making. What happens here is that consumers or viewers of any type of ad, they're going to take much more effort if you can get them engaged in cognitive learning, and they will put forth more effort, they'll pay more attention, and they'll think through it a little bit more, and that the message that you're trying to send them will sink in a little deeper. Some of the learning that takes place happens in an unconscious fashion. For example, how many of you have heard of the brand Huawei? Many of you will have no idea what the company manufactures, but you will likely be able to pick up that it is a Chinese firm just from the name. But that may be just about it. However, what if I show you an image of one of their products, a smartphone? By showing you this image, I'm making a link that you're going to be able to put together with other brands such as Apple and Samsung. And it's going to register with you that, oh, Huawei, Apple, Samsung, smartphones, all these things, these connections basically come together. This is called a trigger feature, as the image of the company's smartphone automatically links you to the phone you might currently own. These triggers are important to the concept of priming, which will be discussed in the next lecture. So one more example, I guess you could say, from cognitive learning. If we see this movie poster for Marvel Captain America Civil War, what does it mean? What is Civil War? And how do you know? Most likely it's due to your study of American history during school, when you were in elementary and middle school and high school. You put one thing together, you learned about the Civil War when you were younger, and you see Marvel's Captain America Civil War, you know immediately what the movie is about. The last aspect of learning that I want to talk about is observational learning. Now, Yogi Berra, who's pictured down there on the bottom left, was first a catcher and later became coach of the New York Yankees. He was probably more famous for some of his quotes which many of you may have heard, such as, "It ain't over till it's over," and "It's like deja vu all over again." One of his more memorable quotes to me was, "You can observe a lot by just watching." So true. Growing up, I learned a lot by watching my older brother. He was let's say, problem child, in that he was constantly in trouble with either his teacher or our parents. Through observation, I learned not to refrain from doing what he did, but I learned how not to get caught doing the same things he was doing. Saved me a lot of grief, and most likely my parents too. But by watching the actions of others and noting the outcomes of those actions, we learn through observation. This type of learning is referred to as vicarious learning, as it does not occur through direct experience. Children learn at the feet of their parents. Visitors learn by seeing what locals do and copying their behavior. This aspect of learning has been explored as a reason to limit violent cartoons on television. According to several studies, kids who watch violent cartoons will exhibit the same type of behavior. I'm not sure I fully agree with this, as I grew up watching the Three Stooges and Bugs Bunny. I never tried to poke anyone's eye out, nor did I ever drop a piano on someone's head. But observational learning is an effective means to get things into our brain. And again, it follows this process. We get attention. The consumer's focus is on the model's behavior. Retention. The consumer retains this type of behavior in their memory. We do a production process. The consumer has the ability to perform the exact behavior. They can copy them, in other words. And then there's the aspect of motivation, such as a situation arises where the behavior is going to be useful to the consumer. Now, all of this leads again to observational learning, where the consumer acquires and performs the behavior that was earlier demonstrated by a model. If you watch how people interact with products in commercials or in movies, we may learn from that behavior and emulate that behavior, and hopefully we gain some type of benefit from doing so. All right, so that's it for lecture 4.2. We'll be back with 4.3.